Should I go to Walt Disney World during COVID-19 or should I wait? This is a question that I'm getting quite a bit from people who either have trips planned or who are thinking about going. And I really can't tell you yes or no. So I definitely want to give you some tools and some questions to think about and then decide if your family is the right candidate to go to Walt Disney World during COVID-19 or if you should wait. So let's talk about the pros to going to Disney right now. The pros are definitely that in general, you're going to have lighter crowds than you would, especially if you were going during maybe a peak time. So during a school break, a holiday time, etc. So while you might not still be able to do everything and the parks may seem a little bit more crowded than you're used to because, well, we haven't been around people very much, you're definitely going to notice that the crowds themselves at the parks are going to be lower. So that's a positive. There's less planning right now. So one of the big stressors of Walt Disney World is that you have to plan very far out. 6 months out, you have to plan your dining. 2 months out, you plan your fast passes. And so right now, we don't have to do that. 2 months prior to your trip is when you do your dining if you want to. And that's only for sit-down restaurants. And there are not fast passes right now, so you don't have to plan for that, which means that you could really book a trip the week before, the week of, and have just as good of an experience as somebody who booked it a year out, which is really good with times changing as much as they are. Another thing to think about is e-learning and working remotely. So many of us are not confound to the normal restraints that we would have of having to be at a certain place at a certain time, having practices, having, a kid in school from 8 to 3. And so there might be more flexibility in that. Maybe you can get your e-learning done or the parts of it that you need to, and you can move on. Maybe you can work in the morning while the kids go to the pool, and then you can go to the parks in the afternoon. So there's definitely some leeway with what your schedule probably looks like right now that normal times wouldn't allow for. Pricing is pretty good right now. I'm not going to lie. You could get some really good rates, last minute deals if you were to go to Disney World right now. So if price is an option that you're kind of struggling with during normal times, then this might be a good time for you to go. And then there are really fun things right now with parades. They're not actual parades, which I'll talk about in the cons, but there are these little cavalcades, which are these little baby parades that keep popping up. Maybe you're at Animal Kingdom and they have a boat go through that has Pocahontas on it or has other characters that you might not really get to see ever. In Magic Kingdom, you might see little parades happening here or there. In Epcot, you'll see Anna and Elsa walking by. So you'll definitely still get to see these characters, which is kind of unique because you wouldn't get to see that under normal circumstances. So who is this really designed for and who would really benefit from going now? People with older kids, people who don't need to interact with the characters, who don't need to have the experience of hugging Mickey. That's really who can benefit here. The other people who really are going to get a good experience are going to be people that have been to Disney before, people that have experienced a lot of the things that maybe you can't do now, and so they don't need to do that next time. That's something definitely to keep in mind if you're planning a trip. If you've been before, maybe this is a good time to go. So let's talk about who shouldn't go to Disney or maybe some of the cons of going to Disney World right now. So number one is definitely masks. I think that is a huge hurdle for a lot of families to get through, especially if you have little kids. I have a 3-year-old and I know that keeping a mask on him just through Target is pretty much a challenge. So ages 2 and up, so as soon as they're 2, they do have to wear a mask, and it's very much so enforced for obviously for safety reasons. So if you don't have a child that's in daycare having to wear maybe a mask full time, you're probably going to struggle with it. There are spots that you can go and take it off and you can rest and, eat and drink without it, of course, but you're definitely going to have it on for the entire day. And that could be a very long day for a toddler, especially if they haven't had a nap. So another downside right now is that you can't have the normal character meets. I know as a mom, my favorite thing about Disney is watching my children interact with characters. The smile that they get when they see their favorite character and they actually get to hug them and squeeze them is just really magical. And I know that that's my daughter's favorite part. And so not having that full-on hugging experience is definitely something that you're going to miss if you have a princess or character-aged child who is going to interact with them that way. Character dining is different. They do have character dining, so you will see some of these characters and you can have a sit-down meal and air conditioning and you can see characters, but they're not going to come up to your table and interact with you the way that they normally would. They're going to be at a socially distanced location, which is fine. You can still see them, you can still wave at them, but you can't have such a personal interaction that you might normally have. That is definitely a con right now if you have little kids. The full parades, like I mentioned, you don't have this long parade that you would have at Magic Kingdom at 3 o'clock that you get so excited for. The cavalcades do a great job of getting that parade feel, but you're definitely missing out on some of the big ones, which might be a real big thing if you have little kids. Fast passes. So while the parks are not full, right, they have a capacity. And while you might think that that's great, without having fast passes and without reserving what your day is going to look like and the rides that you're going to do, some of these rides are actually having pretty long lines. Now, you can rope drop, which means you get to the park right away and you ride the rides you want to, but there are a lot of other people with that idea. So Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, the big rides that you really want to do, especially if you're older, you might have fairly a long wait to do those. Is it make or break lines? No, but definitely realize that you're going to be waiting in some lines. If you are somebody who has not truly been at school, at work, you don't go shopping all the time, you've been more of a homebody during COVID, I definitely think that being there surrounded by as many people, even though it's in an outdoor setting, even though Disney is taking every precaution, they are sanitizing constantly, they have barriers between things. Even though there are all of these things in place, I still think there will definitely be some anxiety that you will face if you are not prepared to be around a lot of people. I know when I've flown during COVID that I was really anxious and nervous. And so I think especially when you're in mom mode and you have your kids with you, dealing with tantrums and strollers and all that stuff, that could definitely overwhelm some parents if you're not kind of already really socialized right now, which hopefully you're really not, right? And so I think just at the end of the day, your first visit might not be as interactive and as exciting as it maybe would be if you have little kids, if you were to go now. I think the people that, like I said, if you've been to Disney before, and especially if you have older kids who can keep a mask on and who don't need to go hug Mickey, I think that's a much different scenario than somebody with really little kids. So think about those things as you plan your trip to Disney World. And remember, if you have one planned now and you choose not to go, there's no harm in that. We can move your $200 deposit towards next year if you choose to. We can make modifications, and these things are changing daily. The first of the year is not here. Could things change? Of course. What to expect as 2021 approaches, I don't know. I can tell you I think masks are going to be in for a while, and I think socially distancing with characters is going to be in for a while until it is truly safe for Disney cast members to be in a close proximity with guests. I truly don't think that we're going to have the experiences of pre-COVID until it's safe, and that's for the benefit of everybody. So as always, I'm happy to answer your Disney questions, and I will talk to you later. Bye.